It's okay. I will help you. Don't worry, Joe, so that we save time. Thanks. Okay. First of all, let me wish everybody a Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Tunamtakia mwaka mwema wa mafanikio na pia afya njema as we open up the new year. So we have an early meeting today. I want to put it in context by just making some short written remarks so that I don't veer off the purpose of this meeting. And then we shall engage in a very short discussion. And because we are so many, I will not want to attempt to introduce everybody. Because we could end up losing one whole hour doing introductions. So I will just acknowledge members of the private sector, those of us in government. We have my colleague ministers here. When the minister speaks, he or she can then introduce maybe one or two persons that they think are essential on behalf of the others, so that we avoid the whole. But let me start with the private sector. We have KEPSA. Who is representing KEPSA? You can speak just briefly. You'll be making a short statement. So that's Carol, is it? Am I right? Or who is it?
My name is Doris Olutende. I'm the Public-Private Dialogue Manager representing Carol. Okay,
thank you. Then we have the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I think we have Mr. Tobias.
Yes, I'm here. Tobias, CEO, Kenya Association of Manufacturers.
Okay. Then we have the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Yes, I'm here. I'm the CEO for National Chamber of Commerce.
Very good. Then we have the Kenya Leather Council. Dr. Isaac Noor. Okay, thank you. And then we have the Kenya Flower Council. Who is representing them?
Catherine Muko, representing the Kenya.
Okay. All right. Is there any other private sector group that I may not have mentioned, but they may be in this room? Okay. But I'm sure that's a very good representation of the private sector. Then we, for purpose of just quickly moving forward, let me acknowledge that if I become selfish and I start by myself, on my side, I have the PS Foreign Affairs here, Dr. Singoe, who is here. So my colleagues will be doing the same. We have the Attorney General, Madam Dorcas. We have the CS Treasury, Honorable Mbandi. We have Honorable Mvurya, sports, but also still handling trade and investments. We have Honorable Dwale handling matters environment and also agriculture. We have Mheshimiwa Hassan Joho handling mining and maritime, the blue economy and maritime issues. Then we have the Governor Sakaja representing the Council of Governors with us. And I also have PS, I'm being selfish, but PS Aurelio Rono from the Parliamentary Affairs. So I think that's where we are. As each minister speaks, he'll point out the people from his team. And those who will not have a minister, I will you'll raise your hand and I'll represent you. All right. So this meeting, if I just very, very quickly make some remarks so that it's on record, is that let me begin by welcoming all of you to this meeting which I have convened pursuant to the urgent directive of His Excellency the President. I am therefore deeply honored to have this gathering of distinguished leaders from government, the private sector, and key stakeholders. Today, we stand united in pursuit of a shared goal, creating an environment where business can flourish and investment in our homeland can thrive. The renowned economist Milton Friedman once said, "The business of government is to facilitate business." So I'll repeat that. The business of government is to facilitate business. It is imperative that we take this wisdom to heart. Our administration's transformation agenda demands that we as public servants become the catalysts that ignite the engine of economic growth. This engine is powered by the private sector. Today's deliberations are a call to action. We as a government know very well that the private sector is not just a partner, but the backbone of our economy. From the farmer in Kilifi, exporting mangoes, to the entrepreneur in Thika, processing leather goods, these are the people who fuel our nation's prosperity. Our role is to clear and light up their path and not obstruct it. As we reflect on the ease and cost of doing business in Kenya, let us be frank in identifying the bottlenecks. We know that excessive bureaucracy, outdated regulations, and inefficient infrastructure have at times become barriers rather than bridges to success. Today we must think of collectively charting a new course. This meeting is therefore an opportunity for those of you in the private sector to tell us where the shoe pinches. First, we must address the regularity and bureaucratic frameworks that stifle innovation and investment. How can we create a regulatory environment that promotes and supports rather than hinders growth? Second, we must invest in infrastructure to reduce logistical costs and enhance competitiveness. Third, we must tackle corruption head-on, ensuring that transparency becomes the norm and not the exception. This meeting is a testament to our unwavering commitment to fostering a robust and productive public-private dialogue. History has shown us that meaningful progress can only be achieved when government and the private sector work hand in hand. As we face the winds of change in a dynamic global economy, we must seize this moment to shape a future that is in Kenya's national interest. There is the often quoted African proverb, which you all know: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This reminds us that sustained economic growth requires unity between the government and the private sector, adopting a shared vision for long-term prosperity. When we leave this room today, let us do so with a renewed sense of purpose. The success of our economy depends on our collective efforts. The government's role is to create an enabling environment, one where businesses can innovate, compete, and scale. In return, we expect the private sector to rise to the challenge, creating jobs, driving innovation, and contributing to Kenya's economic prosperity. The true measure of leadership, whether in government or the private sector, is not in words but in action. Let this meeting set the pace for our commitment to collaboration. Together we can drive Kenya towards a future where the engine of our economy runs on the fuel of opportunity, enterprise, and a supportive government. As we deliberate on creating a more conducive business environment, we must focus on the untapped potential of our youth, Kenya's young population is brimming with energy, ideas, and ambition. They are not just the future. They are the present drivers of innovation and creativity. If we equip them with the right tools, resources, and platforms, they will catalyze the transformation of our economy. Empowered, they can be key agents for development and peace. Let us ensure that our policies create an ecosystem where young entrepreneurs, innovators, and professionals can flourish, because they are left on society's margins. All of us, if they are left on society's margins, all of us will be impoverished. In closing, I leave you with the words of Theodore Roosevelt: do what you can with what you have, where you are. This philosophy aligns with the whole of systems approach, which calls for harmonizing our efforts between government and the private sector, as well as across all sectors, institutions, and disciplines. Such an approach will enhance efficiency, eliminate silos, and maximize our impact. Ladies and gentlemen, together we have the tools, the talent, and the persistence to achieve greatness. So I thank you, and we will go straight to business. We had communicated earlier to the private sector with some very specific areas that we wanted them to focus. So, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, my colleagues will not speak up front. They would want to hear the private sector first. So we request that the first bite at the cherry goes to KEPSA.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, colleagues and all government officials present.
Can you move the mic closer to you?
Hello. Any better? Great. First, we wish to take this opportunity as Kenya Private Sector Alliance to appreciate this opportunity to be here today. As you said in your remarks, to chart the way forward. How is it possible that we can, if possible, attain an improved, enhanced private sector business environment? And so we are honored to be here today, and we wish to make remarks that will be cross-cutting, taking into account that we are also flanked here today by some of our members, KM, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. And so we will be touching on just the cross-cutting issues while we let our members delve into the sector-specific issues. First on the list, I think we wish to bring forth the issue about the licenses and permits, and this is with regard to the non-rationalization of the issuance of various permits and licenses and the requirements that go with that exercise. Why is this an issue that KEPSA feels is cross-cutting? This is because there is a discrepancy between the licensing and permitting regime, both at the national and the county level, and this is certainly going towards making it very, very burdensome for the businesses in terms of operating across the country with regard to trading. We then are recommending that a specific exercise be undertaken to just review the licenses, existing licenses and permits that go with them. So to speak, a guillotine exercise that will then ascertain what needs to be simplified, what needs to be done away with, what is duplicative, and so needs to be collapsed with the other that is already in existence. And so, if possible, we would want the private sector represented in this exercise, fully represented to ensure that they inform the exercise and that to the extent possible, the licensing regime then becomes as light as possible to the traders, to the business community. We also wish for we wish that the national trade portal is then enhanced to ensure that it incorporates all counties to have trade information at a centralized point. We also are suggesting that we fast track the development of the regulations to ensure the implementation of the County Government Uniform Licensing Procedures Act 2024. We believe this will go a long way towards addressing this particular burdensome issue. I'll go to the next point. The high cost and limited freight capacity to cater for horticulture exports for Kenya. We are proposing that an engagement of private sector, for example, the freight clearing agents, is considered in the policy formulations for trade logistics, just to help increase ownership and ease of implementation of the first and last mile decongestion strategies. We also are suggesting a reform of air freight charges and refreshing, or rather a refresher course to remind the personnel as well as the private sector stakeholders with regard to the regulations, requirements, and the international commercial terms to be at par while operating along the regional value chains and global value chains. The other issue that we wish to prioritize as a cross-cutting issue is the pending bills by national and county governments. We call on government to kindly expedite to the extent possible the outstanding bills that are supposed to enable business to carry on. We know very well that if we are targeting the manufacturing sector, for example, to enhance the investment climate in our country and the trade scenario in our country, they rely quite a bit on loans. And if we have a number of non-performing loans recurring on their end, it also then has a ripple effect on the finance sector, who are equally private sector. So we're calling on government to have that resolved at the earliest possible. We also are calling for the reintroduction of the prompt payment bill, which was discontinued. We request that this is reintroduced and completion. We wish to call...
Sorry, which bill?
The prompt payment bill. The next cross-cutting issue is to do with the RDSASA system. We note with concern the inefficiency of the RDSASA platform, despite the noble idea behind it. And it has had quite a bit of a negative effect on the operations of businesses, because thanks to these inefficiencies, we are seeing billions of shillings being held up in bank land transactions and equally outstanding court cases withholding capital from the economy, also running in billions. So we request the expedited resolution of the legal and operational challenges being experienced by RDSASA as a platform. The other issue is with taxation, instability in the taxation regime. I will allow my colleagues present to delve deeper into their specific tax issues. However, I take the opportunity to narrow down on the gaming sector. And the issue here, we are requesting that the National Treasury does revert the definition of the winnings in the Income Tax Act to pay out by the licensee, but does not include the amount stacked by the punter. The next issue, Your Excellency, is the general increased cost of doing business for investors in the petroleum industry. The issue here, we're looking at specifically Section 30 of the Finance Act 2023 that moved petroleum products to the standard VAT category, raising the costs by 8%. In 2019, the oil marketing companies earned 0.1% as a margin on the Kenya shillings 1 million investment. But from July 2023, with a margin of 2 million, they could only earn 0.05%. So we are requesting that National Treasury does revert the petroleum products VAT to 8%. We're also looking at the imposed export duties for magnetic iron ore. My colleague Tobias will go deeper into that, and so I'll pass on that. We go to the next cross-cutting issue, which is to do with the single window downtime and fees that is not commensurate to the service, causing delays at the port. Despite extending the free cargo clearance period at the Kenyan ports from 2 to 4 days, only 40% of the cargo at Mombasa is cleared within this reviewed time frame. And so we are requesting that the rationalization of the costs that are being charged by the single window is considered or reviewed so that it matches the services that it's offering, and equally that it is improved so that the system does away with system downtimes that hinder competitiveness of our port in the region and beyond. The other issue is regarding the sustainability of the national implementation strategy for the AFCFTA and the tripartite agreements. As KEPSA, being the representative, the umbrella body of the private sector in Kenya, we wish that KEPSA is included in the AFCFTA and tripartite implementation committee, so that we are then bringing the lens of the business community across the country in these discussions. Another issue is the non-tariff barriers on priority products in the national value chains. For example, the juices, edible oils, tobacco, dairy, meat products, confectionery in EAC and Comesa market. We request the government to consider addressing the non-tariff barriers affecting external markets, for example, on the products I've mentioned, and equally to prioritize market development of value-added products to priority target markets. For example, coffee, tea, dairy, confectionery, and the target markets we are looking at is DRC, Ethiopia, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, EAC, Comesa, and SADC. I believe this will go a long way to bring about mutual recognition agreements with standardization bodies, food and drug authorities, target markets to reduce lead time and compliance costs, as well as market access challenges. With regard to the East Africa Community Vehicle Load Control. We also feel this is a cross-cutting issue, which we draw the attention of government to the East Africa Community Vehicle Load Control Act 2016, and we're calling for the review of the vehicle load control enforcement measures regulations of 2018 with a view of waiving the actual load limit to provide priority treatment for trucks carrying perishable and petroleum goods. Illicit trade, counterfeits, and grey trade and diminished consumer protection. You'll agree with me all that this is a very critical issue with regard to trade and the quality of trade in our country. We're calling for the establishment of a team to monitor the counterfeits, grey goods, and illicit trade to inform policy around administrative actions to mitigate the same. We also wish for the formulation and implementation of the illicit index across sectors to assist in data formulation towards protecting the Kenyan and ESC grown industries. We are proposing that we have the government facilitate the engagement with Parliament. Your office facilitated the engagement with Parliament with regard to fast-tracking the ratification of the amendment of Article 24.2 of the ESC Customs Union Protocol on the formulation of the ESC Trade Remedies Committee. We also are looking at the export promotion levy as a cross-cutting issue. We propose that to limit the levy to instances where the items sought to be imported can be sufficiently sourced locally. We see clause 70 of the Finance Act 2023 amended the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act to introduce the export promotion levies. The Customs Control Management Act provides for import duty, which addresses the intention of this new proposal. So with this, Your Excellency, I submit. I believe with ongoing discussion, we should to explore further.
Thank you, Madam. That's good. I believe we'll get the written submission as well, because I had requested for it in my note that other than a quick presentation, we'll need the submission. So we move quickly to the next. If we can try and do it in 3 minutes, because you're going to give us the submission. So flesh out what you think is, as we said, where the shoe pinches most. And then the rest we will look at in the written submission. So Tobias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I will start, thank you very much. I will start by what is positive, what we think is you're doing well as a government, and you need to continue. One is stabilization of the inflation rate. It is commendable that it's now at an average of 2.7% from 7.7% in the previous years, and also stabilization of the exchange rate. This is going on well, and it is good for business, and would encourage that it continues. Again, we need to watch in terms of inflation, the food prices. As much as we have stabilized this, if it changes, it will be not good for the citizen. On the exchange rate, one of the good things that we've noted that is working well in terms of improving the exchange rate and getting more dollars coming in is the agreements that have been signed, the trade agreement, the EU, EPA, AFCFTA, and we commend the government for that. Actualization in terms of trade. If this can be actualized, then we'll see a major impact and inflows in revenue for the benefit of the government and the benefit of the citizen. There's an issue that we have raised on the public finance management, and our prayer has been that the National Treasury to develop an action plan to implement the recommendations of the PEFA reports for both levels of government, because this will create confidence in government by citizen in terms of public finance management. On manufacturing, manufacturing is key in this country. We are now at 7.6 contribution to the GDP. And if you look at quarter 2 of 2024 and quarter 2 and quarter 3 of 2024, you note that our contribution to the GDP was at 3.2 in quarter 2, and it reduced to 2.3 in quarter 3. So that's a concern that instead of our contribution to the GDP increasing, it is reducing. And some of the issues that we did identify and we want to address is issues around adherence and adherence to the national tax policy. The national tax policy was a very good guideline. It's a very good document that creates predictability in the tax environment. However, there is a feeling that in certain cases, we've not been adhering to the national tax policy because there is no predictability in the business environment when we are passing policies touching on taxation. So our proposal is that we look towards adhering to the national tax policy when we're implementing budget. And one of the areas on the national tax policies indicates that when you are passing a taxation law, you need to review the implication of the previous laws that was passed on taxation. Did it generate revenue? If it generated revenues, but it closed so many companies, why should we retain it? So the impact and impact of implementation of the previous laws need to be assessed before we implement new policies going forward. The other issue is on the tax amendments, tax law amendments, Bill 2024. Of course, there are clear, very good positive wins that we noted, we have documented. I will not read all of them, but we want to thank National Treasury and MITI for the excellent effort in terms of addressing some of the issues that we recommended. However, there are some concerns still on the railway development levy, the rate increase from initial 1.5 to 2.5. Our concern is on the raw material, that the raw materials need not to be taxed at a higher rate in terms of the railway development levy, because this again promotes industrialization in the country. The other thing is about the regulatory environment. The manufacturing sector in this country is struggling with the weight of ever-increasing costs of fees, levies, charges by government agencies. We know the intent of every government agencies to raise these fees, charges, and levies is to collect money. But we are collecting money to the extent of killing some business or closing down some business. So we need to do an assessment. This is our country, we build it together, both private sector and government. The impact of some of these levies charged left, right, and center from both national and county government is impeding our competitiveness in the region. And we need to just lay this conversation on the table and see how we can address it. I know and understand it's about generating revenue, but do we generate revenue to the extent of killing or closing down our businesses? The last issue, because some of those issues have already been mentioned, county fees and charges, I'll not repeat that. That has already been mentioned. The other issues is illicit trade. In our own estimation, government is losing over, there's a potential loss of revenue that could be more than 300 billion because of illicit trade. And the office of the DPP needs really to support in this exercise, because we do understand there are cases touching on illicit trade that need to be prosecuted, and that revenue got back to government. We strongly feel that the avenue of collecting revenue should be also based on this kind of culprits who are doing illicit trade. The last item is on the cost of power. The cost of power in this country is expensive. We are 70% more expensive than our counterpart in the region, and even if you go far to South Africa, we are 70% expensive. And one of the major reasons that is causing the expensiveness of our power, which is a cost of production, is the reliance on thermal. The reliance on thermal. We have the IPP, independent power producers, who are supplying or producing power at a very expensive rate. And this one needs just a political will and say, within the next 5 years, we are going to reduce these IPPs. And our proposal is we reduce the usage of IPP from the current, I think it is 30% to 20%, and then 10% in the next couple of years, and increase the use of hydro from the current 50% to 70%. With that, as we deal with the issues of IPPs, we'll be able to reduce at least the cost of power. And with that, I think we will see an improvement. My last point is that the manufacturing is a strong support to the growth of any economy, particularly in Kenya. Kenyan manufacturing has a potential of contributing at least 20% to the GDP and 1 trillion in revenue, if we take the necessary measures to support the local manufacturing. I submit.
Thank you. There was something that your colleague there mentioned, something about manganese, that magnesium, and she passed it to you to emphasize. Yeah. Oh, okay. I think it's the mining issues. It's around the mining issues, and in terms of, in fact, we did meet the minister and the PS around this conversation, how these charges are affecting the mining sector. The levies and the fees that are introduced are affecting the mining sector. And the CS did promise to have a conversation and see what we can do to support the mining sector. Thank you, Tobias. So now I can move very quickly to the Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Your Excellency. My name is Ahmed Farah. I'm the CEO for Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also privileged to be a member of the National Investment Council. And I want to take this opportunity first to appreciate the State Department of Investment Promotion and Ministry of MITI for all the efforts and initiatives that they have undertaken to try and put together issues of concerns for private sector. Having the advantage of participating in a number of those discussions from the National Investment Council point of view, Your Excellency, I want to confirm that a lot of the issues presented by my colleagues have already been captured and reported and collated by SDIP and deliberated by the National Investment Council. If I remember well, and correct me, PS, if my memory fails me, we documented quite a number of issues and solutions proposed, and even identified government agencies, MDAs, that are responsible for unlocking those issues. The plea that I would want to make now, I'm wearing another hat of CEO for KNCCI, is actualization of the solutions that have been proposed. Your Excellency, a lot of time has been invested by private sector members seated in this room and some not in this room, the officials of MITI and the National Investment Council. And I think what has been frustrating to a lot of our members when I speak to them is they have engaged time and again with relevant government officials on specific issues and sectoral issues and high-level issues as well that need to be unlocked. So, Your Excellency, I think, and also if my memory doesn't fail me, is we, through MITI, I think it was overseen by CS Mburia and Abubakar PS, the task force has been set that is supposed to be rolled out this month of January. That is composed of specific private sector institutions and chamber of commerces in the country to address the issues that have not been unlocked through the Kenya Amendments Law Bill, and some of those that are still falling through the cracks through the conversations and consultations that have been made. But having said that, I want to also appreciate the efforts of government, as suggested by my colleagues here, in managing the fiscal indicators of the country through difficult time, but of specific concern that, if I might just raise, because you're going to provide submissions, Your Excellency, from KNCCI, I just want to highlight two, which some has been captured. One is the pending bills. Pending bills really is a pain point for all our members and all private sector members. It has not only curtailed and constrained their ability to meet their working capital, but also they're not able to plan and meet the demands that are potentially available out there in the markets. The latest statistics, I think, if I'm not wrong, is close to 700 million shillings of unpaid bills. And then there's also the issue of unpaid tax refunds. 700 billion. Billion shillings. And then the other thing that I wanted to focus on is the unpaid tax refunds. The unpaid tax refunds, Your Excellency, has exposed the business to a lot of suffering, also curtailing on their working capital. At this point in time, again, I think the numbers have changed a bit, but as I was given the statistics, it was standing at 16.3 billion. That's owed to businesses by Kenya Revenue Authority as of October 2023. 83% of the tax refunds claims are under the VAT at 13.5 billion. So, Your Excellency, what our submission as KNCCI is the issues of predictability of tax, issues of cost of energy, specific multiplicity and duplicity of taxes across parastatals and also across the counties continue bedeviling the environment, the business environment for businesses. So for us, our rallying cry as KNCCI is for government to, through a laser-focused approach, consolidate, come again and revisit the issues that have been collated through the year 2024, calendar year 2024 and 2023, and let's actualize them, because a lot of that has been covered. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you. Leda?
Your Excellency, I seek your guidance.
Yes.
We are putting this place as private sector, 100% government.
Yes.
I am my minister and my PSC.
Then that's okay. Thank you. Then the prayer sufficed. Thank you. So we can skip that portion because I think some of the issues are already captured in the presentation there. So let's go to the Flower Council.
Good morning once again. Catherine Mukoko, Chief Operations Officer, Kenya Flower Council. Just like many people tend to think Kenya Flower Council, just a small introduction of who Kenya Flower Council is. People tend to think that we are government, but we belong to this country. So the KFC is a business membership organization for the floriculture industry and those who feed into the flower supply chain, formed in 1996, and we represent over 80% of the flower growers and exporters in the country. And our work is to advocate for and promote interest of Kenya's floriculture industry, locally and internationally. But in most cases, all our market is international. So positioning of the flower industry in Kenya, just a few facts. We are ranked among the top 5 growers of cut flowers in the world. It was Colombia, Ecuador, then Kenya. Ethiopia is coming up very fast. If we are not careful, they are going to remove us from position 3 because they are position 4. So we need to look at that. Currently, the flower sector has over 200,000 skilled and unskilled workers, 1 million indirect employment through services. 70% of our workforce in the flower industry is female and influences over 2 million livelihoods. You realize the flower sector is not within the urban areas, but in most rural areas, and you find that this flower sector drives the economy of the rural areas where they are domiciled. Floriculture accounts to 70% of the total horticulture, almost 100 billion to the national economy. For members that we include the UAE, China, Asia, Australia, and we supply to over 60 destinations worldwide. So with that, I can quickly go through what our ask is and the challenges that we are facing. But before I do that, I will borrow what Tobias, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, just to say as well, we appreciate the efforts that the government is doing in working with us. I specifically want to thank the CS Trade, Buria and PS Abubakar and PS Komburu for the support that you have been giving the sector and for the inroads that we have been making in some of the challenges that we are facing. So I quickly move on to the challenges. Our first ask is on logistics. Because our product is perishable and is exported, our main source of this is air freight. But we've been having a few challenges in the past couple of months due to lack of enough capacity that has led to a lot of congestion at the airport. We have also seen several international airlines withdrawing their flight services from JKIA in favor of other routes in China and the US that are offering better returns because of the cost. And then the expected cost of freight here in the country is discouraging traders from trading in the country. So that's a big issue for us. The impact of this has been the reduction in the industry's performance because we are unable to service our orders. For example, the December, January, February period is very high because of Valentine. There are so many occasions that are happening and they require these flowers. So if we are unable to have capacity, then it means we are not able to fulfill our orders to our clients, and that leads to quality of product deterioration. Since it's fresh, it needs to get there when it still looks good. The longer it stays, then it loses its vitality. And of course also there's loss of business for our members. The market share becomes less because, of course, if we don't do well, Ethiopia is coming up first. So if I whereby most people would be interested in taking their business to Ethiopia, or the investors prefer investing in Ethiopia. And of course, loss and reduction of revenue. And that ultimately contributes to us not being able to pay the government enough. It gets reduced. So we would just request your support in making sure that coming up with a way that is going to be favorable to make sure whatever we want to export, there's enough capacity. How can we work to make sure that this doesn't go down for us? The second issue, and my colleagues have spoken much about it, is taxation. There's a lot of over-taxation and haphazard introduction of taxes. I would say that a flower farm currently, and I have the list here, pays 56 or 58 taxes. We've listed them down, and we will share this as an annex to our submission to you so that you can look at it. Some of these include the unique consignment reference charge that is charged at 10%, 10 per entry. And Tobias, I think, has also captured that. So what that does is, we have a lot of investors that are getting discouraged by these charges. So they want to come and invest here, but when they are given this list, they think it's not worth it for them. So that's something we need to safeguard, because if you look at the impact of the flower sector and contribution to our GDP, that is something we really need to safeguard. I know most of the time we think tea, we think coffee, but I don't think we take time to really look at what the flower sector contributes to the economy of this country. So our ask is just consideration of tax incentives to the growers and the floriculture players so that they can boost the income to the industry, and then also improved proper stakeholder involvement in decisions regarding increased taxes in the country. And still in terms of the levies and licenses, what happens is, because of this, there's reduced profit margins, because you get money and you end up paying so many taxes, there's nothing left for you. Reduced competitiveness for the industry, and investors are shying away again from investing in the country. So we would like a lot of involvement and support and participation. Get our views, know where does it pinch us, how can we help you make these things work, and how can you help the flower industry also succeed. The last item I would want to request is a reduction of VAT on farm inputs. The 16% that is imposed sometimes is not refunded immediately. So we have a lot of backlog in terms of refunds that our members have not received. So we are requesting that farm inputs be zero-rated for VAT or charged at a reduced VAT rate. Because we have the chemicals, we have the fertilizers, how can you work with us to see how this can be favorable for us? And then, the VAT refunds. We have some members who have not been refunded, and the amount is close to about $1 billion in tax refunds. You know, so if we can streamline that, that's our peak ask as the Flower Council. We had an in-depth meeting with the investments PS, Abubakar. So, and we are looking forward also to the actualization of the task force so that some of these things can be quickly addressed. I submit, and thank you very much.
Oh, is it on? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and you are going to do the written submission on that. So, ask my colleagues to make some comments, and if they so wish, they can react partially to some of the issues you have raised, not necessarily comprehensively, you know, because today is a dialogue first. We need to have that clear understanding. I think I should start with the Treasury, although most of the issues are Treasury. I don't know whether I should start there Or I should start with the others and we close with Treasury?
I think I have a point to make.
Yes.
Of order.
Yes.
I think, Your Excellency, I think in the future, it's good that the private so that in a very expensive and I can wrap as we sit here, because yeah, so share the copies with us. A very good, better way of doing it. We are seeing it, we are hearing it for the first time. We need to digest, we need to consult and give very concrete answers. But I'm sure my colleagues will, the areas that I touch, they can say something. But I that should be the rule.
You will still have the mic. You have your team with you. I can see some of them. Maybe your agriculture team as well. Can you introduce your team?
Yeah. I have PS Livestock. PS Agriculture is in Kampala. We have the DG NEMA. We have the CEO of Leather Council. I was wondering why you want to do government. And who else is from the ministry? I think there are other three people.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My team, I have PS for Blue Economy, based in Jaji, the PS for Mining, Elijah Mwangi, and PS for Maritime Affairs, Geoffrey Kaikupo. Your Excellency have taken note of most of the issues, particularly that touch on our ministry, and like they reported, we have been engaging, and we want to continue to engage, because some of the regulations that have been formed have a specific purpose, particularly in the area of promoting manufacturing. And I give you a particular example of magnetite iron ore for exports. Whatever rate we put up in place is to be able, first of all, to encourage setting up of manufacturing within the country. I would pick up the conversation with the association, with the manufacturing association, on particular charges. For example, the one we're engaged in is a 500,000 shillings fee that has been put in place. We believe it is part of the process of cleaning up, because for far too long we have had a cadastre full of busybodies who are occupying the space and no intention whatsoever to realize mining itself. So we want to make it reasonable but also fair for all of us. For example, there are issues that have been raised on Kwai and road construction material that we have asked the ministry for self or voluntary declaration for the past year. And going forward, we agree, because there are instances where people say we don't want, they should be waived. And you realize that if you do a road construction for government, you have charged as government for some percentages that caters for ladies that you want. You find it hard to pay. Where I see an opportunity for us to engage in a glad Kamasakadi is here, is in the area of county charges in matters management.
And that we can pick up that conversation, because we are supposed to collect royalty that we share with the counties. So cess vis-a-vis royalty, maybe the area is timely disbursement, collection and disbursement from Treasury, but I see many opportunities that we're able to engage going forward, Your Excellency. And I commit to continue to talk.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and Waziris and the private sector. On behalf of the Council of Governors, we are very happy and willing to continue this engagement. Allow me to just first introduce, we have our CEO, Mary Mwiti is here, and other members from the Council and also from Nairobi County Government. We've taken note of these concerns, and these concerns, I must say, are not new. These are issues that we've discussed severally. the issue of licenses and permits, I think we need a thorough review. We've discussed this for many, many years, even at the Senate before. I think that proposal by, I don't know if it's KEPSA or Association of Manufacturers, for us to do an audit, because there could be duplication. I agree. There's possibly duplication amongst both levels of government, and that could be one of the takeaways from this meeting through the Attorney General or the Treasury, just to review all of these different charges by different agencies. Many counties have made progress with a unified business permit. Others have not yet been able to do that. We need to see how to support through the ICT ministry for those who have not been able to unify. The prompt payment bill, it's very funny, Your Excellency. I was the sponsor of this bill when I was in Parliament, but now as a governor, I can see how it may not be very practical. Just because of, liquidity issues. The intention of the bill is good. I don't think we need, to emphasize what it does when people are not paid, having delivered services and goods. I think we need some stimulus, and we need to work on it with Treasury. There's an audit being done by Edward Ouko and his team on pending bills. I think for the counties, we need some support. Of course, the bulk of that is Nairobi. I got 100. Out of the 700 billion, a seventh is Nairobi County. And many of them are historical, from the days of the council. So that one, short of a stimulus and also proper budgetary control, I'm not sure what both levels of government can be able to do to deal with that. But the bill, I don't think. But now I'm not a legislator. I leave that to the Attorney General and to the national government. But if I was to go back to Senate, I would withdraw that bill. Because I'd be jailed, by now, for not having honored some of those payments. We find ourselves in a quagmire because in June, the county licensing uniform procedures bill was passed. But there are regulations that are supposed to be put in place. I know we're working together with the Ministry of Trade to look at the regulations, but it's not a panacea to the issues, because all it addresses is the procedure of how to come up with licenses, of how to license. But that same truck driver from Mombasa will have to pay in every county until Malaba. That needs a bigger conversation. And what I wanted to hear was a proposal from the private sector acknowledging each county's right to levy that charge. How would it be more efficient? If it's one paying point, then it is distributed by the counties. Because stopping at every county, you can imagine 8 to 10 counties, on your way, is not proper use of your time. So a proposal would be welcome from the private sector. Finally, the Flower Council. First, I'd like to correct the presenter from the Flower Council. She said that they're mainly in the rural areas. Your biggest market, apart from export, is Nairobi. If you go to City Park. And City Market just down the road. So unless this Valentine's you want us to siangaliane vizuri, please retract that statement. We employ very many people. If you pass by City Market every morning, there are hundreds of people cutting the flowers, loading them. And so we're part of your ecosystem. Please consider that. But beyond that, just to help you with the logistics, we're keen. Now, what we want as a Council of Governors, and specifically as Nairobi, I think the private sector needs to work with us now, because a lot of the challenges we're grappling with, and I thought Honorable Duale would mention, and I know he will emphasize, a lot of the pollution and illegal dumping is coming from your members. Number one, engaging unlicensed private service providers who do not dispose their garbage at the final disposal sites. And so as we clean, they're the ones who dump along the roads. And I can see the DG of NEMA nodding. Polluting the river. We have the polluter pays principle. In many other countries, you find the big companies, the bottling companies, etc., actually putting in some resources to the local authority that is supposed to take care of the environment. I hope we can work together on the environmental issues. Your Excellency, I'll leave it at that for now. But as COG, we are willing to continue this engagement. I think our technical teams will sit with yours, or whichever way forward is agreed upon from here. Thank you, Excellency.
Now that you touched he may want to respond to something.
No, Your Excellency, this is a very good meeting, and I will, once I get that document, we will respond accordingly, factually. On the Flower Council issue on freight, I think it's not the Ministry of Agriculture, as we have done our bit, so it's the Transport Ministry. It's about freight. And I had seen a letter on my desk from the Minister for Transport talking of the Flower Council and their clients deviating most of the cargo that used to go by sea to the air freight. So that is one of the, I think he's saying that's one of the reasons why we have total jam. And I think he was trying to tell that more people should use freight. But as the private sector and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers have given us what they need government to fix, then from an environmental point of view, then you must also take something home. You know, it's give and take. And on a light touch, the private sector, Your Excellency, posts sometimes huge profits. Some of us, we look at their books, or on TV we see them. So if you're making huge profits, I think they lead to government. Government gives you the infrastructure. Government gives you the road, the power, and many, many other amenities, the airports. So we have a serious challenge with the private sector and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers in as far as environmental protection is concerned. Very, very serious, and we will provide. When you have 145 factories who decide not to have the infrastructure for waste disposal, and they put that waste into Nairobi River, then the sustainability report, every individual, corporate and social, must take the issue of environment very serious. And that's why in our constitution, the framers of our constitution decided not to put environmental protection, even in an article. It is in the preamble. The preamble of our constitution talks about we must protect, conserve the environment, our heritage for now and the future. And that's why me and Governor Sakaja, we have a serious duty to clean this city and create green spaces and clean the 27 kilometers of Nairobi River. So as we're sitting here, I think the business community must also take their duty to make sure that they protect the environment and help government and other institutions and county governments in major waste disposal. As a country, waste management is a devolved function. But I'm sure the former governors here, waste disposal is a serious investment in terms which I think county governments alone cannot do. It must be both county and national government must come together so that we have designated dumping sites in our cities. We have a proper way of disposing all the waste, whether they are chemical. And for everybody here, the business community, the way you are complaining of the counterfeit and illicit trade, then those who do illicit things on the environment, we are the same. You can't say this person is doing illicit trade, at the same time you are dumping all the industrial waste into in our rivers. So I think, Your Excellency, as I told you earlier, I think we need to have another meeting so that, like the summit, so that we resolve the issues that the private sector is raising. Then also as government, respective ministries and the county governments, we also have issues we want the private sector and our good people, the Kenya Manufacturers Association, they can do. I mean, they're very critical in our country. This revenue we run, this government comes from the private sector, comes from Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Flower Council and many other small, medium businesses. So I think that's all I can say. But it's good they share with us the documents, and then we can even respond to them in a week's time through your office.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'll switch to this side. Let me start with the Honorable Mvuria. As we said, the documents, once submitted, we shall ensure that all the colleagues here and all departments will get, so that we are speaking from one page. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and also my colleagues and our partners in the KEPSA, Association of Manufacturers, and also the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. I want to introduce the team. We have Dr. Kombudo, the PS Trade. We also have Dr. Mukwana, the PS Industry, and also PS Abubakar Hassan, who is in charge of investment promotion. Your Excellency and colleagues, this indeed is a very, very important meeting, and especially for the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. This is really a meeting that we have been looking for, where we have the other ministries also listening to the private sector, because the goal of the Ministry of Investment is to ensure that we inspire both foreign direct investment and also domestic direct investment, but more importantly also inculcate a culture of having a conducive and a friendly business environment. And in pursuit of these objectives, since the 23rd of September 2024, we have been running a series of public participation with the private sector, basically also to get some of the key issues that are impeding business, but also impeding investments in our country. And as a result of that, we have been able to work with the National Treasury, because we identified a number of issues. Some of them have been repeated here. And in our classification, there were issues that required policy formulation. There were issues that required legislative intervention, and others that required just administrative action, like the issues of bureaucracy in terms of dealing with business and investment documents. So, Your Excellency, as a result of that, already we have the business amendment laws which have been passed, which have also been worked very closely with the tax laws, because the issue of tax regime and predictability was very key, and part of it has been dealt with in those laws. But I also want to inform the meeting, Your Excellency, we have 5 other bills which are in draft. They have been taken through public participation, and they are on their way to the cabinet to deal with some of the issues that have been raised here. However, Your Excellency, when we met again with the private sector on the 18th of December, we realized also there were issues beyond what they had raised. And one of the key issues is the issue of the regulations and levies, and these are areas where the investors and the private sector felt even though now they can plan, with some of the interventions we've done in the law, in the area of levies, which comes with many agencies in government, they felt that it would not be very easy for them to plan because these levies are erratic and sometimes they come in the middle of their plan. And because of the importance of the issues that they raised that time, we agreed that they lead a task force because the levies are across board and some of the levies are not harmful to business, but now they would identify those that are impeding to business. So this task force is actually supposed to take effect now. It is led by the private sector. The two PSS, the PS Trade and PS Investments, are members of that team. Then we have KEPSA, we have the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We also have the Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We have the Horticulture Crop Development Authority, the American Chamber of Commerce, the British Chamber of Commerce, Retail Traders Association of Kenya, the Kenya Bankers Association, and also the European Business Council. And basically, Your Excellency, we had agreed on a very tight time frame which they were going to work on, and also very specific recommendations that would be relevant for government to intervene, and basically to see how we are going to provide guidance across board on how we deal with these matters. So I'm sure the members will be convening soon so that then you can roll out some of the areas that we had agreed. But more importantly, Your Excellency, this meeting is also opportune, and I'm sure from this meeting there will be key inputs, from across government on how some of the matters will be dealt with. So I think as a ministry, we still remain open to engage and commit to ensure that we promote that kind of facilitation. I know there are issues that have been raised across board on matters that have to do with the agreements we have made, the AFC, FTA, the tripartite free trade area agreement, and also other areas within the East Africa community, which also provide us an opportunity to refine, especially those that require intervention in the face of non-tariff barriers, but more importantly also areas that other countries are also raising, and other countries are also, putting levies which affect the private sector in Kenya. I think that is also an area that going forward is an area we can also look at. But more importantly, I think, Your Excellency, as I conclude, is just to reiterate that this is a whole government approach, and it requires this kind of intervention so that we can be able to address the matters. We have a bill also in Senate which is going to be addressing part of the issues, because the business amendment law was amending 18 acts of parliament, but it was split. Part of it is in the Senate, and part of it was passed in the National Assembly. So I would wish just to stop at that, but also mention, just to revisit an issue. I think there's an issue, Governor Sakaja, which is an opportunity to work together with the ministry. The matters on the cess and what you mentioned about the uniform system. I think when the counties, the Ministry of Trade and the private sector sit together, it will be very fruitful, to have something that, all partners can be able to comfortably propose and recommend. I wish to stop there, Your Excellency, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Waziri. On the task force, because it looks like there was a little bit of a ping pong here. It's being driven by the private sector, isn't it?
Yes.
And the chair is the private sector. So maybe one might want to know when does it convene?
So, Your Excellency, we're in consultation with the member, the private sector organizations here, and those in the task force, and liaising with the PSs mentioned that sit in the task force. But the commitment that we had given was within this month of January, we should be launched and commence the engagements. And the target is we're looking at the week of 20th.
Okay. Yeah. And the Minister?
Yes, we're being launched by His Excellency Waziri.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
With your indulgence, just one issue. There's something about the East African community. Because the Minister is not here, if you don't mind, I give Dubat 2 minutes to flag out some issues before I come to the AG and Treasury.
Yeah, but Your Excellency, just to point out, the COG is not in that task force, not represented. I think you need to include the Council of Governors. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dubat, do you have 2 minutes?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I represent my Minister for EAC, ASALs and Regional Development. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and also the private sector for giving us a platform to engage. Mine starts with an ask of the private sector that the Republic of Kenya and the government invests heavily in our membership and commitments under the East African community, with the objective of creating a very big platform and a market for yourselves. And the largest beneficiaries are basically the private sector. So as a ministry and as a government, we would like to encourage the private sector to take advantage of that membership, especially the new markets that have joined in, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of South Sudan, and the Federal Republic of Somalia, so that we can increase our space and our share of intra-ESC trade. That is the first one. Your Excellency, I've seen there are around 3 issues, unless I've missed some, that have been raised. I'd like to say something about them very quickly. One of them is the non-tariff barriers. We are aware that non-tariff barriers is a big problem for the region. It's something that manifests in different forms. It's something that we've been managing as a region, and we have a regional mechanism for management of these non-tariff barriers. Kenya, being the largest businessman up to last year in the region, of course faced a lot of challenges in terms of these administrative and technical barriers to trade as well. We're working very closely with the ministry, especially the State Department for Trade, to find ways of eliminating these non-tariff barriers. In the regional mechanism, we have made great strides and we have removed some. And we also have bilateral engagements with the specific countries. Currently, we are aware as we speak that there are only 7 non-tariff barriers against the Republic of Kenya, 3 with the United Republic of Tanzania, for which we have had a deadline with the ministry, and my colleague PS for Trade. I think we have next month or the month after a bilateral engagement with Tanzania, and we're trying to see how we can remove those 3. We have 3 that is against us by the Republic of Uganda, and again, we are working together with him and the Foreign Affairs Ministry to set up those conversations. And we only have 1 against Rwanda. So we are making progress. So we want to assure the private sector that we are pursuing both regional and bilateral mechanisms to eliminate these non-tariff barriers. There's an issue which was raised on the Vehicle Load Control Act, which is basically harmonization of road user charges. That is a live conversation in the region, in EAC. We are We've had a challenge with Burundi and Rwanda as a smaller country saying that you cannot use distance and a dollar rate, which is $10 per 100 kilometers, because their countries are small. That conversation is ongoing. We've given ourselves as Council of Ministers until June this year to resolve that matter, so that's something a matter that. But currently, as we speak, we are using commensurates, and I think there should be no problem from the private sector in that space. And finally, on counterfeit, I've had someone mention, I think it was Kepsa. What can we do as a region on the space of counterfeit? I would like to assure them that we have an anti-counterfeit policy and bill that is under development currently and discussion in the region, and we are moving towards the elimination of the same. If there are any other issues that we'll pick up from the document once it comes, as a ministry, we shall respond comprehensively to the private sector. Thank you, Your Excellency.
I hope they can opt you into the task force so that those issues are, yeah.
Thank you. That will be appreciated, Your Excellency, and will add value.
And the Council of Governors. Okay. So I think that's done. Treasury. Oh, you wanted to go first? But because I think his is, yeah. If you think yours is shorter, his will be long. I suspect yours will be long.
Your Excellency, sir, thank you for inviting us to this meeting. I'm here with the Honorable Solicitor General, Mr. Mose, and he's there. We don't have much to say because we are a facilitative department of the government, and we are seized with the mandate of advising the government on policy, regulation, legislation, agreements, contracts, and convention, and to support government policy. I think all I can say now is, as the Office of the Attorney General, we are ready to support the government in these areas, but more so, one of the initiatives that we have is the Public Participation Act, which we think is very important because it will deal with issues of duplication, harmonization, justification of legislation, policy, regulation, impact, and predictability. And once it is introduced into Parliament, we hope that every sector will come up with regulations to line with the Public Participation Act, which is just a guide. And that would touch on many of the issues that have been raised here. Otherwise, we are ready and willing to support the government and the private sector in all they do as regards our mandate. Thank you.
Okay, Treasury.
Thank you.
Sorry. You, AG, we can you can raise the issue with the DPP that there are some cases, yeah, which may be lingering. So maybe that.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and I want to thank you, together with the private sector, for convening us this. It was morning, now it is afternoon. Let me first begin by saying that the relationship between the government and private sector is of mutual benefit to both of us. The role of the government is to provide the macroeconomic space or environment that would help businesses thrive. But also, again, we rely on the private sector to create jobs for both social and political stability, and also to give us money to run government and provide services. So having said that, I know a lot of issues have been raised that are touching on matters finance, matters taxation, and generally how to help ease the ease of doing business better. I promised to, I think, maybe I get the other one. Yeah, I promise you to have one-on-one engagement on these specific issues after this, together with my team, to see if there could be some improvements to be made, which I believe there are. But allow me just to point out a few issues that have been raised from the floor, beginning with the issue of pending bills. And I think it has been talked about largely by both KEPSA and also the Chamber of Commerce. It is a fact, Your Excellency, that one of the critical challenges that we are facing as a government today is largely to do with the liquidity in the economy, and which is attributed largely to the government's difficulty by the government to honor its obligations to those who provide goods and services to the government. all the other fundamentals, as have been mentioned, work very well. We appreciate that inflation is low. It's now 3%, the latest data, which is still fairly low. There are others like Forex. We have 4.9 months cover in terms of reserves, which is one of the highest. I think the highest in the history. We have comfort with our exports showing signs of improving. The shilling has stabilized, many other fundamentals. But then you hear complaints about this liquidity. So the pending bills, for us to address it, Your Excellency, and this the government is dealing with, is first to deal with the budget. It's not about prompt payment bill. I also want to agree with Sakaja. You can bring as many legislations as you want, but if you don't deal with the root cause of the pending bills, you will not sort out the problem. We have the law in place that says you cannot make any payment until you pay the pending bills. First charge, they form the first charge, but that is not respected. And you can't drag all government officers to jail. So the starting point will be to deal with the pending bill at the budgeting stage. And this should not just be a national government effort. COG, counties must stop over-projecting on-source revenue. National government must stop over-projecting revenue collection. Then we become realistic in our budget, and then we will solve this problem. The bills are amounting, the ones that were submitted to UKU committee is about 663 billion shillings. From the preliminary analysis, that was the brief that was given to me, the bills may come down to about 450 billion after verification. But again, we carried forward from last financial year 151. So you're talking about not less than 600. A lot of it is under road sector. There is a strategy to deal with that, and Your Excellency, you are aware of that. I don't want to belabor the point. But even the other pending bills, I will make a proposal to the cabinet on if we can come up with a system like a stimulus to help pay the bills over a period. It will not be done in one financial year, maybe 2, 3, certainly I think more realistically in 3 financial years, but we have to develop a policy so that again it is done without any favoritism in it. Something that does not touch directly to my ministry, but this issue of cost of energy, I think, Your Excellency, this is something that we may need to deal with it. I think there's been a lot of talk around it. But let me mention something about some of the levies that KEPSA feels shouldn't be there, like the petroleum, the petroleum VAT on petroleum products and export promotion levy. I want to say that as we think of trying to cut on this cost, we must also maintain the principles of taxation. As a principle of taxation, tax system should be simple. It should be fair. So if all other products attract VAT, then you must have a very good justification for excluding others. Because the moment you come with multiple rates of taxation, then that tax system will fail to obey the principles of simplicity and even violate the principles of fairness. So we are trying to move away from multiple rates of taxation. As a matter of fact, I am one person who is so against zero rating of commodities. We are thinking of if the bare minimum we can do, if a commodity is so essential, then we may exempt but not zero rate. So the exemption would to help so that we don't increase the prices of these commodities is even to go to the raw materials going into those commodities and also exempt so that we obtain the same result as if they were zero rated. You talked about, I think it was the flower sector, you talked about the cost of the VAT on farm inputs. Actually, most farm inputs don't have VAT charged on them. But if there are some that you have issues with, then we'll pick them out. But we will go for exemption. I am against zero rating because, again, the reason why you are crying about refunds that are not being honored is because a lot of those refunds are fictitious. There are a lot of business people, and they are your members, who are simply thieves, and they are stealing from the government and they're stealing from Kenyans. They make claims that are not authentic, colluding with our KRA staff. That is what we must avoid. That is why I have been singing this song of avoid zero rating. Even some of the items which have refused, which have defeated us, we can't remove them from zero rating, but we should, like bread, we should remove them from zero rating because it is only helping these unscrupulous business people and not the intended purpose. I'm trying to summarize, Your Excellency, and as you rightly said before, that mine may be a little bit more. So I've addressed the issue of tax refunds. We are really trying to make sure that the tax refunds, we streamline that process and make funds available to make tax refunds in time to help liquidate or give liquidity to the business people. On adherence to the national policy, I can't agree more. Our national policy is very simple. We must enhance certainty, predictability, but you see it is a new law that was just passed. It's a new policy. You have to settle. Actually, we are looking at possibility of not even having finance bills. We really don't have to have finance bills every year, because if we have agreed on a predictable way of financing our budgets, we'll just be preparing budgets based on a known, definite, and certain and predictable tax system. Again, RDL, I actually mentioned that we need to be fair and harmonize. If you look at import development, it was a different percentage. This one is a different percentage. We want to harmonize the percentages. And again, you see this RDL actually was reduced in 2023. I don't know the reason why behind it. It was probably not necessary. But this is a conversation that we need to engage in. I think I've addressed the haphazard introduction of taxes. We are going to see more predictable tax regime going forward. I think I've answered the reduction of VAT on inputs. Actually, when we talk about many taxes or multiple taxes, although they intended that the result is the same, or the outcome, but a lot of these are actually not taxes. They are actually levies that come about from various ministries. Maybe what we may need to have, Your Excellency, is we could even consolidate some of these levies and have one, so that, I mean, they are not so multiple. We may still raise the same amount from them, but we actually need to harmonize and even consolidate. But I want to end by saying two things to the private sector, Your Excellency. Sometimes we engage, and my recent engagement with it on tax laws amendments, tax procedures, and even the business laws amendment bill, is a lot of suggestions came from the private sector, and you supported us so well. But you tend to support us more in the boardroom. And when we get the bashings, even for some of the suggestions which have come from you, we don't hear you. I think you need to be bold where you feel something is working for the private sector. Just be bold and also tell Kenyans that at least this one came from us. So that we don't carry the burden of things that you have suggested to us. But now when we are told that we are making changes haphazardly, then you are also quiet. So I hope that that partnership going forward will be realized. Finally, Your Excellency, I just wanted to mention to the private sector that if the government fails or implements its programs in a manner that hurts the economy, you're the ones who hurt most. We are all in this. If we are borrowing so much from the domestic market, you are the sufferers because you will not get money to do your business. So I think it is in the interests of all of us to work together and understand that we still need to mobilize revenue to be able to finance the bigger part of our budget without borrowing too much. Your Excellency, if you allow me, you know, yes, we can say that things seems to be working well, that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, but there are also still serious and gray areas. I will tell you that 2027, we have a Eurobond to pay, $900 million US to pay. If we don't come up with a strategy early enough to address that, and we reach 2027 with that uncertainty, obviously we'll go back to a worse state than last year, January, because the shilling will just lose ground completely, and we may not recover. So you find 2027, we have the 900, almost $1 billion US to pay, and that you must pay. It's a bullet payment. The following year, we have $1 billion US again to pay. At least from 2028, you have a breathing space to 2021, which is just about 2 years, to pay 1.5. And then the following 2034, we have 1.2. The only space we have is from 2034 to 2048. That is the time that this country should relax. You know, I've looked at these figures and sometimes ask myself whether we should have done a few things earlier better. So even as you complain that the government is too aggressive, you must understand the environment in which we are operating. If we close our eyes and ears and wait for things to sort out themselves, that is probably what others did previously, and we are where we are. We must look for ways of solving some of these things even before they hit, so that when that time comes, 2027, we must address it in 2025. And 2028, we must address now, so that we don't postpone and push problems to another group of leaders. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. So based on the principle of natural attrition, then it means that the younger people in the room must work very hard so that we are not caught up in that trap. I think we are more or less coming to the end of our engagement, and we shall just be looking at the way forward. Okay, and I've heard too many male voices. I don't know if there's from the private sector. Is there anything that you might want to suggest on the way forward? Don't go back to the issues; those ones are covered. Just on the way forward, one comment from the private sector, preferably a lady, or if not, Tobias, do it. Okay, I'll give you two. One Tobias and the other. Okay, just.
So, thank you very much, and thank you for this meeting. I think what we are agreeing on is the challenges we are facing are collective challenges, both for the private sector and government. It's not one-sided. So, one area in terms of way forward is the committee's recommendation needs to be concluded as soon as possible to capture clear recommendations on what needs to be done, and then submitted to the government, cabinet, and then a decision needs to be made touching on different ministries. Number two, We are also going to speak well in terms of the successes of government. And I think I can cover myself. My first presentation touched on what you've done well. We are going to do that because it is a shared responsibility. So that's a commitment I want to put forward. Thank you.
Thank you. A lady from the private sector.
Thank you for calling on us to also put in our voice. I'm a culprit. I guess I just started by stating the KEPSA position, but the truth of the matter is that KEPSA and the relevance of KEPSA would not have been a reality today if not for the goodwill of this government and the previous government. So we truly take the opportunity to register our appreciation for the goodwill we have received from the government. We also, as a way forward, would want to appreciate the open door and the welcome that we have received from the different CSs that have spoken, including the commitment from the AG. We do not take that lightly, and we do intend to certainly take full advantage of that, of the offers that have been extended to us for the benefit of the private sector. And as it has been stated, this is a mutual relationship. Whatever we are able to accomplish here is for both the good of both parties around the table. So we will engage in the different dialogue platforms available, extended to KEPSA and its members and the private sector in general. But of specific interest here today, I think the statement made by Governor Sakaja, I think the outcry about the licenses and the levies and the cess is something we certainly need to roll up our sleeves for. And I wish to commit that KEPSA is very, very keen to provide any form of support and information data as well that can go towards cleaning up that space. We also truly appreciate the support from CS Mvurya and the PSs. It feels like we are working together, and we will continue working together. Thank you very much for your able leadership, all of you.
Thank you. Chamber of Commerce, you want to?
Yes, Your Excellency, thank you very much. I want to also reconfirm our commitment as private sector to work very closely with government to create a favorable business environment. We do know and believe that we only have one country. And as CS well elaborated, the facts on our face is that if government does not do well, we will definitely have no environment to operate in. So we will continue working very closely with government to see how we can unlock the bottlenecks the businesses are facing. We do appreciate the challenges the government is facing. Some and majority of them could be even outside the control of government. But since we're in this space together, I think our intention and drive as private sector is to see how we can not only just make our environment attractive, but also position Kenya in the international global market as a preferred investment destination, and also our products to be competitive in the national markets. We have quite a number of bilateral agreements, as highlighted by CS for MITI. But the onus is us as business and private sector to take advantage of the pathway that has been created by government. So this is a demonstration of a partnership that can only lead to a better Kenya for the older ones that might not live to see the window that has highlighted by CS, where it is going to be free of the payments for Eurobond. But Your Excellency, allow me to also take this opportunity as a demonstration of the commitment to work with government. Kenya National Chamber of Commerce was honored and privileged to win the opportunity to host the World Chamber Federation Africa Global Summit that will be held between 9th and 11th in the month of April. It's the first time that is going to be held in Africa. and Kenya has been privileged to be the one to be the pioneer. We are working very closely with the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other relevant ministries through a leadership that has been structured, that has put together government. The event is looking at bringing in over 4,500 delegates from over 70 countries to showcase opportunities for trade and investments in Africa. So, Your Excellency, I believe this is an opportunity for us to continue demonstrating partnership between government and private sector to demonstrate and showcase not only Kenya as a frontier for investments and trade, but Africa at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council of Governors, way forward. We're just taking that, and we have a secretariat team. It's recording all this.
Thank you. I think mine is just to emphasize the need for us to all work together, and really for the private sector to get used to working with counties. The gentleman who just spoken is hosting 4,500 people in Nairobi, I suppose, and I'm hearing it now. And, you know, I think the approach that has been taken by the national and county governments, that we're all serving the same people, should really translate to also us in the private sector. We're willing to crack that nut of the levies. We've grappled with it for far too long. A solution must be found without taking away the right. You know, Chapter 12 of the Constitution is clear that consumption taxes and such are the purview of the national government, but the counties must levy certain charges. So we're willing to have a team within COG as well, either within this task force, the relevant subcommittee. Today I'm just representing the chair. I'm not in that subcommittee of trade, to be able to look into it. Secondly, also as Nairobi, if you allow me, Your Excellency, we're willing to engage. A lot of you have your members in the city. We've met with your local branches, the KEPSA Nairobi, Association of Manufacturers Nairobi branch. I think at the higher level, we'll also be willing to engage. For PS Dubat, one of the points that we had in our presentation as COG is the lack of involvement of counties in negotiation of these treaties. Make many of our counties, especially border counties, not know what the protocols within East Africa are that they can take advantage of, in many areas, including agriculture. So I think we just need a closer engagement, both levels and also with the private sector. So thank you so much for convening us, Your Excellency.
All right. There is something around the legislation. There are several pieces of legislation. I have both the AG and Madame Aurelia. Maybe a comment, and the AG will, how we can fast track some of those things.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency. We've actually captured a number of legislative proposals, areas that needs amendments and areas that needs to be reworked. And I actually wanted to request, because a number of issues that have been raised touches on policy, regulatory, legislative, that us being the ones coordinating legislative initiatives, we can be also included in the task force so that we work together.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Waziri is here, but Kombundo, you have the EPA. And Tava, you want to quickly say something on the way forward, very quickly, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Excellency. By way of quick brief, we, starting last year, are implementing the Economic Partnership Agreement between Kenya and the European Union, which I think provides lots of export opportunities. We are doing lots of sensitization together with the Association of Manufacturers, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and also some of the other agencies, together with COG. We'll be in Kisumu on Friday, and we've done several other towns. I think maybe I could focus more on opportunities for participation here for private sector. There are governance tools within the economic partnership agreements that allow us to have a grievance mechanism that quickly addresses problems that can take several years at the World Trade Organization, but using this mechanism can take just months. So for example, in the flower sector, whereby you're having issues to do with the false codling moth and raised inspection rates by the European Union, we are having a council the first quarter of this year. So all the issues that your exporting partners have in any of the 27 countries can be quickly addressed using this council meeting that is coming up in this quarter. Excellency, we are also pleased that we are on the final procedures for implementing the economic partnership agreement between us and the United Arab Emirates, which is a $450 billion economy, very good for horticulture, very good for meat exports, very good for services exports, and this also shall provide good opportunities for the private sector. The specific opportunities that I would like to also mention to the private sector is that we shall be having domestic advisory groups for these trade agreements, and that also then provides some leadership opportunities around that. In summary, we'd like to encourage the private sector to continue participating in our joint trade committees that we convene on a bilateral basis. This helps us to sort out problems that exist on a bilateral basis. When Tanzania, for example, put a blockade on export of Kenyan tea, we used that mechanism to solve that within about 2 weeks. We are having one with China in the coming months and several other countries as well. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Thank you. All right, now my colleagues, unless there's somebody burning, because as I rise here, we are closing. Okay, okay. And then you can also wrap up your portion.
No, I have nothing really to add or useful to add, Your Excellency. I just forgot something very important that I didn't introduce my team. I came also with my PS, James Mohati, who is a PS for economic planning. I don't know whether there is any other, thank you, James. Is there DG Mwenda is here? Yeah, but I don't see him. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just that, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you. You go with you, and then Mheshimiwa Joho.
I think mine is
just
to speak on the reforms in NEMA, because NEMA works with the private sector and Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I think NEMA has automated its license services. We have established a one-stop licensing at NEMA headquarters. That's one thing. And then all applications of NEMA and online. You can check the status of your license online and see where it is. We have also reduced the statutory timelines when you apply for a license, particularly for low-risk projects. They can be processed within 5 days. For high-risk projects, will take time. All payments of NEMA are on e-citizen, I think, which is a government policy. And we have attached an officer to be based at Ken Invest to help investors understand the regulatory framework of. But there's something that good news for government and the private sector, the extended producer responsibility. That law is in place. So if you pollute Nairobi River or anywhere, then January, Parliament has adopted, the AG has gazetted, it's now the law, and please, extended producer responsibility on the environment is now a statutory and a legal requirement. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. So the way forward is that we must familiarize. They say the ignorance is no defense in law. Eh? I suppose that's the message you're sending. Okay. AG?
Nothing much to add, Your Excellency, but our office, guided by the Solicitor General and PS Rono, are working very closely. I was indicating that the Solicitor General, Mr. Mosi, and PS Ron are working very closely, and we are ready, willing, and available to support all legislative, policy, legal issues to support the process.
Sorry, but bear with me. I'm used to calling you governor for 10 years. All right, so I think we are done. On the way forward, they've captured your sentiments, but critically, what I see is that we need to fast track the bills that have been canvassed and more or less prepared, so that they can now be dealt with, and we finish those areas. Then the private sector, we shall get your written submission, and it would be important for the Secretariat that is taking the notes that everybody gets a copy of all those submissions from the different areas so that they can respond. And I would also like to encourage the private sector and the various government departments. You've listened. Where you think you can shorten our lead time, please engage the ministries at this point in time. And let us do a lot so that by the time we come to the cycle where Honorable Mbandi is presenting the budget statement and all that, we have cleaned up a lot of the issues. So that whatever is left, he cleans out during that cycle. So we have really, we should have done a lot of these things by April, so that you can actually streamline them and put them into the system appropriately. What we will do also, the Secretariat will develop a matrix on the issues, and it will also be circulated and shared with you, indicating an action point from who and how, so that we can now have a way of measuring what we have agreed to and what we have tasked ourselves to do. And from that matrix, you'll be able to know whether you are lagging behind or you are running ahead of the pack. And I want to say that there are very good people here. In this country, sometimes we don't realize just how good. You know, like I was watching, I think it is BBC, either yesterday or the day before, while in Ghana in the evening. And the United Kingdom is now introducing the ETA. Some of you may have watched it. Now, you Kenyans are already ahead. You already have the ETA rolling. And here is now a developed nation chasing after you to try and introduce the ETA. So I know there's a lot of potential in our people. So let's just unleash that potential and be able to move forward. So asante sana. I'm told that there is some refreshment by my people. Chai, ama maji, ama nini, somewhere. You'll direct us. Where is it?
Excellency, all the participants, with your permission, are invited for light refreshment, and this will be somewhere on the left. You'll be guided by our staff. There's a room on the same floor, on the other wing. Thank you, Excellency. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Asante sana.
That's